Hey everyone, this is the Greg Chapman Show. The show is mainly meant for facilitators and trainers, educators of any sort, conducting workshops virtually or face-to-face on behavioral stuff, behavioral topics from leadership to self-awareness to high-performing teams. Even coaching finds its way in here. The idea of this long-form conversation is to help fellow facilitators and learners techniques, change mindsets or bust some facilitation myths, even tips and tricks are here too. And all of this from masters of their craft from across the world. So if you're starting out or if you're an old hand at it, you'll find something in here. Today's guest is Kirsty Melmed. And Kirsty is an intuitive life coach from Cape Town, South Africa. She's also a very experienced facilitator, and she empowers people pleasers to be brave, to do their inner work necessary to stop trying to make everyone else happy and start living life authentically instead. Using a combination of mindset, energy work, and transactional analysis, Kirsty takes her clients through her unique and transformational BRAVE journey, and that's an acronym, BRAVE, and we'll be jumping into that. And BRAVE is actually a masterclass that Kirsty runs. The byline reads, "Brave to be me," which offers participants a choice of learning experience from monthly self-study content to group and one-on-one and real-world connect. To finding out, if you want to find out more, you can reach Kirsty at Kirsty Melmed. That's KIRSTYMELMED, coach, COACH, @gmail.com. Welcome to the show, Kirsty.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so energy work, what's that all about? Just a little while before we began recording, we were talking about this. What's energy work and how do you use it? If you could tell us a little bit.
Sure. So energy work is basically tapping into your intuition. So we all have that inner sense or that inner knowing that gets triggered, from time to time. If you imagine meeting someone for the first time, you get that feeling inside of, oh yes, this person feels interesting. I want to keep talking to them. Or this person kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. There's something about them that is just putting me off. And that whole process is really your energy perceiving their energy and seeing, is this a match? And so the energy work that I do is about, it's about tapping into that and becoming a lot more consciously aware of it, because it all happens at quite an unconscious level. And the more you can become aware of other people's energy, of your own energy, of the energy of a situation, the more you can allow yourself to feel that and to let it go. But most of the time we don't, because sometimes what we feel is uncomfortable. And so we push it down and that energy gets trapped in our system and it creates a bottleneck. And that's when we start to experience physical symptoms of this energetic problem that's going on. And so, when you begin to get really overwhelmed or tired, or literally like, in your body, when you feel low energy, it's this bottleneck of emotional stuff that needs to be dealt with. And traditionally, we do that through talk therapy or through coaching, which both have their place. And I mean, I'm a coach, so I certainly do believe in that modality, but that's done at quite a conscious level and, targeting your subconscious. But the energy work is really deeper than that. It's the unconscious, if that makes sense.
So yes, it makes perfect sense. And it's something I deeply resonate with. So what I hear you say is that a lot of times when we're facilitating or when we're coaching, we're doing so at a couple of levels. One is the conscious level, the logical level, the things that are happening, what we have pre-planned, our responses that we are giving, what we're receiving. But there's also an unconscious level. And then you're saying that you're tapping into that as a source of energy for your facilitation and coaching. I would imagine there's some amount of being mindful that happens when it comes to this kind of work, energy work, and whether it's facilitation or coaching. How does mindfulness, what role does mindfulness have to play in this kind of work?
100%. So when you're mindful, what it basically means is that you're present in the moment. And you're not allowing those thoughts that run rampant through your head usually to do that. You're noticing the thoughts come in and you're shifting your focus back to, how do I feel right now, the present moment. And so when you do that, things get really quiet in your head and you're able to hear that deeper level. And I know it sounds a little bit intangible, but the easiest way to do that is to check in with your body, because your body is so wise. Your body will tell you what the energy is saying. So, sometimes like let's say you bump into an ex that you haven't seen in years and you instantly get a stomach ache or something like a weird feeling in your stomach. And it's like, what is that? It's your body telling you the energy of this is off. There's something here. So if you can practice mindfulness regularly and get flex that attention muscle. So it's almost like instead of paying attention to all the thoughts and all the experiences and everything that's going on, which is quite overwhelming, it's paying attention to your body in the present moment. As simple as that. You create space to be able to get curious about, well, what does that feeling mean? What's going on here? And that is, I think, what broadens your intuition, what helps you connect with that inner wisdom inside of you that is ultimately always guiding you along your path.
Mindfulness for meeting your ex.
Just an example about how your body speaks to you. I'm sure we've all had that experience.
I get that. Of course. Couldn't let that go. So if you do a check-in right now, if you're up to it, and only if you're up to it with our body,
yeah.
So how would you do it? How would you,
Sure.
or you could ask me to do it, or you could do it as well, or whatever works.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's do it. I'll guide you through a quick check-in.
Sure.
If that would be useful.
Sure.
So you can get comfortable in your chair with your back nice and straight, hands either in your lap or by your sides, palms facing upwards, and you close your eyes. And as you settle in, you take a deep breath and you slowly let it out. And you breathe in through your nose, nice and deep, all the way down to your belly this time. And then slowly let it out through your mouth. Breathing in and feeling even more calm and present. And letting go any lingering tension as you breathe out, relaxing your shoulders. And you continue to breathe in a rhythm that feels good for you. Any thoughts that might enter your mind is okay. You simply observe the thoughts and bring your attention back to your breath. Bringing your focus to the top of your head. Noticing, how does my head feel? Any tension I'm holding in my face? Any feeling in my neck, my shoulders as you begin to move down your body? Focusing on your arms, your hands, your fingertips, feeling them relax. Shifting focus down your torso, down your spine, into your stomach, digestive area, your hips, your tailbone. Bringing attention to your thighs, the muscles, your knees, your shins and your calves. through your ankles to your feet, down to the tips of your toes. Tuning into your body and noticing any feelings that come up for you. Any sensations, any areas of discomfort. Simply noticing, simply observing, not seeking to understand or to judge or to change the experience, but simply allowing it to be there. Observing and feeling. Taking a deep breath in through your nose. Slowly out through your mouth. Bringing your awareness back to this moment, the chair that you're sitting in. Slowly wiggling your fingers and your toes. And opening your eyes when you're ready to.
Thank you so much.
So did you notice anything in your body when you were doing the scan?
So yeah, so in my stomach, there's a tightness in my stomach. And I could attribute it to perhaps because of this call and what we're doing, perhaps because of that. And right now, feeling much calmer.
Yeah.
I went into it saying, okay, what's going to happen? And half of my brain is saying, okay, is it going to take too long? Is it not going to take too long? Can I clip this and make another video out of it? All these things are coming to my mind. And I said, okay, but then when I even despite that, and in a setting like this, despite that, I feel much calmer.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by flexing that attention muscle, is that kind of second level thinking, of, oh, how can I use this? What can we do? Is there going to be time? All of that stuff. It's quite draining on our energy to be thinking like that all the time. But I think as a society, we've been programmed to multitask and overwhelm ourselves, with activity. So the more that you can practice moments like this, where you simply check in with your body and go, what am I feeling? The easier it gets to bring your attention to that and to leave the other stuff behind. But it does come with practice, which is why it's called a mindfulness practice. You've got to keep doing it. And I think at first, for anyone who's doing this for the first time, the first goal is simply awareness. It's noticing and observing without judgment and without trying to get to the bottom of it and that kind of thing. And once you feel comfortable that you can have awareness of how you're feeling in your body, then you can take it to that next level. So Greg, you're probably more experienced with this, which is why you could already notice, okay, I know what that tightening feeling in my stomach was about. So that next step is getting curious and going, okay, I know that that's there. What is it trying to tell me? What's the message here? And then you can have options and go, okay, now that I know how I feel and why I feel that way, what am I going to do with that? How am I going to help it? How is that going to help me move forward in a way that feels good, as opposed to a way that might be from my past conditioning or what I think is being expected of me, or, all of those things, which kind of bring it up to that subconscious limiting belief spectrum.
So there are a couple of pieces that really stand out from this for me. One of the thoughts, and I'll just completely upfront this with you, be transparent, authentic, trying to be authentic. I was thinking, okay, this is like any other guided meditation. That's what I was thinking to myself as I started this. as I also hear you talk, and even somewhere in the experience, and now also that I hear you talk, I see that when you ask the questions, so one, what are you feeling, and in which part of your body are you feeling it? You're drawing attention to that place, and you're enhancing your awareness. The second question takes us to the next level, where you're saying, what is that feeling trying to tell you? And it's a simple question. I'm assuming it's going to take practice. You ask yourself that question, the feeling doesn't speak to you. That's okay. And then you do it again and again and again and again. And you're doing it not just at certain parts of the day, as you get up in the morning, sit down to meditate, but you're doing it as part and parcel of your daily routine, and asking yourself this question, and then slowly, I'm assuming it would begin to tell you. When you say you're an intuitive life coach, I'm just decoding this very literally. Is it also saying that you're using your intuition when you coach or when you facilitate, and you're also tapping into similar stuff? If you could just talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, that is exactly what it means. So I have trained in a modality called inner tuition, which is really about learning to tap into other people.
Inner tuition, right?
Inner tuition, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's really about learning to tap into other people's energy. So popular term at the moment would be an empath. A lot of people are identifying as empaths and saying, I can feel other people's energy, other people's emotions. And what that really means is that they can feel other people's energy, and they're becoming sensitive to that. So the training that I've done teaches me to do that, but also to have healthy boundaries around it, so I can turn it off and on, but to use it as a barometer to know how things are going, in the training experience or in the coaching experience. And so it's different for everybody, because we all have our own intuitive gifts. For me personally, I feel it in my body. So often when I'm working with someone, if they say something that's very profound or important to them, I get goosebumps. And it's almost a joke between myself and my clients, where they'll be speaking and all I've got to do is hold my arm up, especially in this online space. I hold my arm up and they know, what I just said was important there because Kirsty got goosebumps. And it creates this rapport and trust, but I really trust it. To guide me. And so the other way I experience it is I get random words going through my head. So as the person's speaking, like maybe the word judgment, let's say, will go through my head, and I'll offer that to them and say, this is the word going round and round my head, judgment. How does that feel for you? And usually they'll go, yes, that's it. And I think many coaches and facilitators are doing this without realizing that they're doing it. So if they can bring more attention to that and practice it with more awareness, it really opens up their intuition and makes it a very powerful part of the coaching or facilitating experience.
And I can see this I'm just projecting now into a session where if I'm standing there, and very often, almost every time, there'll be the batch in front of me. I'll be standing, and there are many things happening in my brain. So the agenda, how am I doing on time? I have this bad habit of going over time, always. So how am I doing on time? Do I need to pull back? Okay, somebody's asking something. Where's that person coming from? What's behind that? How's it? Are there any indicators that the class is going good? Is it not going good? I'm constantly evaluating. So lots and lots of this stuff's happening in our minds. So, what I'm taking away from this is not to say that, hey, quieten those voices down and stuff like that. Yeah, if you can do it, great, go ahead. And that's probably a topic for another discussion. But also in this melee of agenda and time and indicators and all of that, yes, in my mind, there are a lot of these words or feelings that are popping up, and as I look back, I'm seeing that oftentimes I'm saying, hey, shut up, let me focus on, or I'll just not even say shut up, just completely discount them, to use TA terminology, completely discount them, and move ahead. And what I hear you say is that become aware of these, and that's your mindfulness. Become aware of these, and as you become aware of these, offer them, not as advice, saying, hey, you're being judgmental, to just pick on the example that you shared, but also the word is emerging, and setting the context, but then the word is emerging, a word's emerging like judgment. What does it say to you and in this context? And I'm thinking that A, I'm going to try this out, and B, a lot of times I can feel that just intuitively, the audience is going to connect with this, because a lot of things are happening in their minds. And when you're mirroring that this is happening in my mind, it's just it's almost like a chain reaction. Starts off what's happening in their mind and becoming aware of that part. So
yeah, and I think that's why it's such a delicate balance as well between that having to, holding a space, whether you're holding a space for one client or you're holding the space for a group of people in a learning experience. It's that finding that balance between being present and tapping into your intuition and allowing the process to unfold, and taking care of the time and getting through the points that you need to get through, and maybe having a little bit of flexibility with that. Time is obviously not always flexible. We have to stick to the boundaries there, but it's how do you use the time? Are you going to stick to your agenda because that's what you wrote ahead of time, or are you going to go where the energy is in the room? I'll never forget running a workshop once, and I had it in my mind, I was sharing 3 models from TA with the group. That's what we were doing. And we ended up spending the entire time simply talking about the one model. And I checked it out with them, and I said, I have these 2 other models that I wanted to share with you, but I'm sensing that this one might benefit you more if we go deeper into it. And I gave them the option, and they were all said, yes, this is what's holding our attention. Can we do that rather? So it's allowing yourself to be flexible and what's going to provide the greatest learning opportunity for the people in the room, not what do you think they need to know, because it might not actually be relevant to that particular group of people.
Yeah, constant sensing. What was that model, if you're comfortable sharing?
What's that?
What was that model? That TA model?
It was the I'm okay, you're okay model.
So and what context were you sharing it? What was it?
It was actually a group of students that were in class 7, so that would have made them around 13 years old, maybe something like that. And the teacher had asked me to come in and present the drama triangle. The drama triangle and the I'm okay, you're okay, and a little bit of parent, adult, child, to give them, those were the 3 models, to give them an idea, because they were heading into those teenage years where you can be quite critical of other people and kind of pointing out each other's flaws and that kind of thing. And she just wanted them to learn to be kinder to each other and to realize why they were doing that. But we looked at I'm okay, you're okay first, and that is what took their attention. And they wanted to practice that, role-playing that with each other. And what does it feel like to be okay and to believe somebody else is okay, to actually have mutual respect? It would have been too much information to go through all 3 in the time that we had. So I had to trust that they knew what they needed to learn. And so we focused on that one model.
And if I may just connect it to what you were also sharing previously, this is, and tell me if I'm wrong, this is probably one of the manifestations where you're trusting your intuition, you're there in the moment, and very often there are no mathematical answers. I've got these 3 pieces. This is, and no matter how much you prepare, there are these 3 or these 2 pieces, and there's this time for one, or so there's time for one and a little more. Now, what do? Do you do that one and do you do that little more, and tick in the box? Do you just stick to that one? And there are no easy answers to that. And what I also hear you say is that intuition is a good way of arriving at something that, and especially if you've trained it, it's quite possible that initially when you use it, it might not work, but staying with that trust, that, yeah, this is one of the ways, one of the dimensions I want to develop.
And checking that intuition out with the person in the room or with the other people in the room, because I think especially when you're beginning to do that and to work more intuitively, you can experience a bit of self-doubt and go, did I have that idea like in my head, or is this an intuitive sense that I'm experiencing? And so you can simply check it out and ask, this is what I'm sensing, what do you think? And the person will either confirm what you are sensing, or they will say, no, that doesn't land for me. And then you go, okay, and you let it go. There's no ego involved when you're working with intuition. It's, what might make sense to you might not make sense to the person in the room, and you have to respect that. So then you go from there.
Your intuition and also the other's need, right, going hand in hand and not looking at it in isolation. So,
yes, exactly.
That really stands out for me. And as you're speaking, I'm also thinking of a few times that I've done that, and I have relied on my intuition and it's not gone right. And I'm seeing that probably because I didn't check with the group that, hey, you know what, I'm standing at the crossroads. I could go here, here, and here with this program. Where do I go? So that's all happening inside, and I'm taking my own decisions, but also checking with the group. And I hear you saying that. If we could just go back to that TA model, the I'm okay, you're okay model. So very quickly, if you could just share with us, with the group, with our viewers, what's that model about, and a little bit about how are you using it? Because I had never thought about using the I'm okay, the OK Corral, I think that's what it's called, with students, with kids. Grade 7, grade 8 kids. And now that you say it makes so much sense, because yes, the I'm okay, you're not okay, or vice versa, that's very prevalent with kids of that age, even younger. And I think it would really help somebody. So what's the I'm okay, you're okay model? So I'm just going to say 3 pieces of it. So what's the I'm okay, you're okay model? What stood out for your students at that point in time? And you spoke of a role play. So if you could just give us a little bit of an idea of how did you do the role play and stuff like that. Yeah.
Sure. So the I'm okay, you're okay is it's a quadrant. So it's almost like if you were looking through a window that had 4 panes of glass. If you can imagine that. And depending on which window you're looking through, it's distorting what you're seeing. So the first window that you might look through is I'm okay and you're okay. And when you're looking through this window, the view's not very distorted, it's quite clear. And what you're feeling is, I'm okay. I feel empowered. I feel like I'm important. I feel like my needs are being met. I feel like I have a right to an opinion, that I'm safe to put down boundaries, that I can communicate effectively, I can problem solve, I can look at the bigger picture, I can be respectful. I'm also believing that about you. So when I'm looking through this pane of glass, I'm believing you're okay. You have a right to an opinion, and it's okay if it's different from mine. We can still find a solution to this challenge that we might be looking at. I believe that you, have the ability to think and reflect and make your own meaning. I believe that you are okay, just as I am okay. So there's this equality between us where we're both in a good space. We don't have to agree, but we can still figure it out, if that makes sense. The next pane of glass would be, I'm okay and you're not okay. So when I'm looking through that, I'm still believing I'm okay. I have the right to an opinion. I can think, I can feel, I can manage all of that. But I don't believe you can. So what I might do there is slip into one of 2 different roles. I might go into a bit more of a dominating role where I think, oh, I better take charge because you're not able to. I know better than you do. I'm more powerful, or I'm more potent, or I'm more able than you are in this moment. So I'm going to take charge. So that equality that existed previously has now done this. I'm one up and you're one down. It can also play out in a slightly more nurturing way, where you might look at someone who's struggling and think they're not okay, they're not coping. I better step in and take the reins because I have the ability and the resources to do that. And that's where you do a little bit of rescuing, a little bit of people pleasing, a little bit of, taking care of someone because you think they need that.
Yeah.
The next pane of glass would be, I'm not okay and you are okay. And when I'm looking through that, I'm believing that you are one up and I am one down. That you have the ability to problem solve and to come up with the solutions, and that you can take charge. Your opinion maybe is more important, your needs are more important, and mine are not. I don't have a voice. So that's where I might take a bit more of a victim kind of a position, that helpless feeling of giving away all my power. And then the last pane of glass, when I look through that one, I'm saying I'm not okay and you're not okay. So this is quite a hopeless place to be, because I'm thinking, well, we're never going to find a solution to this because I can't come up with anything, and I don't think you can either. And I think that's probably where a lot of relationships end, when you choose to walk away from someone and say, actually, there's nowhere to go from here. Neither of us has, I don't have respect for myself in this situation. I don't have respect for you in this situation. Let's just walk away. And so that's basically what the okay corral, or it's also called life positions, what that is. And I think the important thing about that is you get to choose which pane of glass you look through, and what you're seeing is your perspective. It's not necessarily the truth of the situation. So if you're looking through and thinking that person's not okay and I am, that's your perception. It doesn't mean that they are or they aren't. But the way that you approach that person, with that attitude or with that belief, is going to affect the quality of the encounter between you and them. So that's why this is quite a powerful model, because A, it's very simple language and easy to understand, which is why it is great for younger people, for younger kids, but really for anyone, and also cross-culturally, where language might be a bit of a barrier. It's fairly simple to understand. But B, it offers you a different perspective to be able to say, well, I don't want to be in those other three, boxes, those other three panes of glass. I want to be in that first one. If I'm okay, you're okay, because that sounds good to me. And that's, really at my core, I know I'm a respectful, empowered person. But when I allow myself to see someone else as not okay, or to see myself as not okay, I'm disempowering. I'm feeling low energy. I'm not able to deal with what's going on. So how can I get myself to that first pane?
And a lot of this also ties in with the mindfulness piece, because becoming mindful about which emotional state you're in, and then probably moving from there as a second step, being empathic with that first, and then leapfrogging out of it. At what point in this, if you can remember that only, at what point did something really stand out for the children, for the students, when you were doing this? Because as you're saying this, I can see that it's also something that can appeal to an adult. An adult could get it quickly and apply it. What would stand out for a student?
Just a quick thing about the adults. It was funny because at the same school, another teacher invited me to come to her parent-teacher meeting and teach them the same model to the parents, because there was a bit of disrespect going on and lack of boundaries between the parents and the school. So that was equally as useful as it was doing it with their children. But yeah, so at what point did it become relevant to them? I'm all about making things practical. I think that learning these models, learning the theory is all good and well, but you have to integrate it. You have to put it into practice somehow. And that's where an exercise where they get to role play it, is really useful. So the exercise on role playing is one that I learned from my trainer and mentor, Karen Pratt. And basically what it means is each of them got 4 post-it notes, 4 sticky notes. And they said, you know, I'm okay, you're okay. I'm not okay, you're okay. I'm not okay, you're okay. And I'm not okay, you're not okay. So each one represented that. And they went off into partners and they stuck their post-it notes on the ground to make, you know, that window. And they thought about a situation where they were experiencing some conflict with someone. And then they stood on each post-it note, basically. They had a turn standing in each one of those corners. And they had
for the same conflict situation, they took turns. Like for the same conflict situation, they'd have to go across all the 4, or they just chose one?
For the same one. So like, for example, if I thought I had an argument with my mother last night, you know, that didn't make me feel very good. I would then stand in each one of those and I'd start at the least energetic one. So the I'm not okay and you're not okay. And I would stand there and I'd go, what would I say to my mom if I was standing in this square right now? And it's so funny. It's almost like you cathect. You take on the energy of that position. And the other person, your partner's job in this exercise is to observe what happens to you. How does your body language change? How does your language change? How does your expression change when you are standing in each block? So, you know, then I would move to the next one. Okay, well, I'm not okay and you are okay. How do I respond to her, if that's the example, when I'm standing in this space? And again, there's a shift. And then the next one, and there's a shift. And by the time I get to that last, you know, that optimal square of I'm okay and you're okay, now what do I do? What do I notice? And so the person who's doing the exercise, you know, once they're done, will give feedback to their partner and say, this is how I felt in each one of those spaces. Which one felt more empowering? Which one offered me options of how to deal with the situation differently? And going forward, is there something I could still do that's going to change what happened? You know, or shift the relationship.
So you break them up into pairs. One person would stand in, you know, go through the 4 boxes, and the other person would be the role play as a mother, or maybe as a...
They would simply play the observer. So it's really a role play with yourself where you're kind of saying, like, what would I say if my, you know, if the conflict with your mother is the example, if my mother were standing in front of me, what would I say to her from this space? What would I say to her from this space? And then the partner is simply observing. And then they would feed back and say, well, when you stood in that box, I noticed your shoulders drooped a little. I noticed your voice got softer. I noticed you were struggling to find words to express how you were saying, how you were feeling. So it almost brings attention to, you know, how am I coming across when I'm believing I'm not okay, or that you are not okay. And then hopefully the outcome of the exercise, and indeed what many of them experienced, is that when you're in I'm okay and you're okay, gosh, it feels so much better. It's lighter. You can find the words, you can solve the problem, you can actually communicate with the person. And some kind of insight will come out of that, you know, as to how to move forward in that particular situation. So it's an actual lived experience that allows them to connect. And actually, I'm just thinking now, allows them to connect with their own energy and intuition to know next time I'm in that situation, this is what I might do differently.
I think that's exactly what it's doing. And I think it's a really powerful exercise on many counts. So for example, one is cathartic. You're getting people to talk about what's happening inside. And way too often, you don't even know what's happening inside. But by the templates are allowing them to surface what's happening inside. I'm also saying it's very experiential. So I mean, you know, it's one thing somebody tell. Okay, I get it. This is a box. And as I'm talking to them, I'm also thinking that maybe, you know, people looking at this could also do this for themselves. You know, draw a box on the floor, think of a conflict situation that you have with someone and needs closure, and just go through the various boxes. You can get an observer. If you can't, it's nothing better than a cell phone. See what happened. So it's very experiential. there's also, why it also stands out for me is that for many, it would give a sense of closure. I want to say something to my mother, sibling, father, spouse, significant other, peer, whatever, and I'm not able to. And that's not just a one-off. It's been,
Yes, there's a
built
pattern.
up over a period of time.
Yeah.
And I think like you were describing, it's almost like a journey. You're going from one box to another box to another box to another box. And I think that's also important. The jumping into from wherever you are into I'm okay, you're okay, may not happen instantly until you follow a certain journey.
It can actually be a struggle. I remember the first time I did this exercise where I was participating, and this is where I learned it from Karen. It was at a TA 101 workshop and we were doing this. And I remember standing in the I'm okay, you're okay space. I couldn't get there because the conflict I was describing, I was in such a not okay space with that situation that I really couldn't get to I'm okay. And there was a gift in that, because even though I didn't get to experience what I'm okay would feel like, I got to understand why I wasn't able to have a voice in that situation. It was like, okay, I'm believing, it's a lot of okays being thrown around. I'm believing that I'm not okay in this situation. Why am I believing that? So then I got to go off and do a bit of work around that and self-reflection and just an exploration, so that the next time when I was in the actual situation, I could step into my okayness. So I think we also have to become aware of what's holding us back, what's keeping us from getting into the space that we want to be in, because it's not always as simple as just stepping into it, although for some people it might be. It just depends on the situation.
So first off, Karen Pratt is an amazing, amazing facilitator, and I should have her on the show very shortly. So
yes, I heard she's speaking to you as well. I thought, great, people can learn a lot from her.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I don't hear you saying is that any one of these boxes is bad, right?
Yeah.
So where you're beginning with, you're saying, here is where I am. What's in it for me? Exploring that. Why is this happening? Without saying, oh God, it's a bad place to be. Let's get out of here fast. But exploring it. Okay, go into another box. So if I'm in and I'm okay, you're not okay box. I think that's how you started off. They're not trying to jump into saying, okay, so what does it take to make me I'm okay, okay? Go quickly. When you're going throughout them, and excuse me, how I see this panning out is it can easily be used for coaching, and it can easily be used for facilitation. So it's a very versatile piece. And just to close on this, if we introduce a little bit of psychodrama to this, and tell me what you think of this. Supposing the person with whom I was having that conflict, I chose that person from the room. I'm saying facilitation. If you're doing a small group coaching or a facilitation, and I chose that person from the room and said, this person reminds me, for some odd reason, whatever, some trait of theirs, of one of my parents or whoever else, sibling, peer, boss, somebody. And then with that person in front, so have that actual dialogue with that person and have an observer watching him. And that person, goes across the quadrants. And then you could also ask the person who was playing the role of the mother, boss, supervisor, father, whatever. How did you feel? What did you see? And also the observers. So I'm just saying.
Yes, very powerful. Yeah, and I think it would also be quite astounding to notice that that person who's role playing someone they've never even met before would actually know exactly what to say. There's some kind of intuitive thing that takes place where they would say exactly the right thing that they needed to say in that moment to facilitate the learning that the person wants to do. It's just quite crazy when you observe something like that, because it all just works out.
Yeah, it all just works out. Trust again, it all just works out.
Trust the process.
Yes, trust the process. I want to ask you so many more questions. But we're also coming to a closure over here. So maybe I'm going to keep some of these questions for next time, hoping there's a next time. I'll just take you through a quick rapid fire round of questions and then we can close. So as a facilitator, right, what's your definition of success as a facilitator? What do you think a successful facilitator should look like, think?
The thing that brings me the most feeling of joy after facilitating is to see someone walk away and go, like, my mind has been opened in some way. For me to get the feedback that this person is thinking about it differently is the ultimate level of success, because I want my intention in being a facilitator is for the people participating to learn something new about themselves or to learn something new about their relationships and to be able to put that into practice. So if they walk away and say, gosh, I'm thinking about this differently, and they're quite excited about that, I've done my job. I've offered them a new perspective and they can go do something with that if they want to.
And looking back on your years of facilitation, what are, if you look at the patterns, what may not be causation, may just be correlation, but what are some of the things that you did and then even perhaps unknowingly, and then you got that output? If you could remember, I don't know.
So I'm coming to the belief that the ultimate human need that we all have is to be seen and heard. So if during that workshop, whatever the space of time is, I can model that, I can see and I can hear each of the individuals there, I'm going to be fulfilling a really deep and primal need that they have. So there's something about the way, it's not even about what I'm teaching, it's about the way that it's about my presence and about really gifting them with attention, with actually seeing them. My mom would say, listen with your heart, so very few people get to experience that on a day-to-day basis, because other people always have their own agendas and ideas and opinions about how things should be. And so to actually come face to face with someone who genuinely is listening to you and is seeing you and is honoring who you are, whether they agree with it or not, doesn't matter, but they're allowing you to be you. Oh, it's such a gift. And it can be a bit like, it can take you aback when you first experience it. I think a lot of people who come to coaching for the first time are like, what? You want to know how I feel? Like, what are my expectations of you? Like, I don't know, we're so used to being told what to think and feel. So to have someone show up fully committed to honoring whatever your experience may be, is such a gift. And I think that leads to people having the space to think about things differently, because there's no pressure to do it a certain way.
What is the one or two things that you do? Could be a mindset, could be a ritual that you do that allows you to see and to hear people. Yeah.
Well, the first thing is the contracting up front at the beginning of the session. So whenever you're setting the scene for the learning that lies ahead, it's actually asking people, what do you want to learn today? What's important to you? Rather than going, here's our agenda and these are the learning outcomes that I have prescribed for you. It's going, this is our topic. What are you curious about? What do you want to learn? And writing that down and making sure that we get through all of that so that it's a relevant learning experience. So I think, like, first and foremost, upfront doing that sets the tone where it's like, this is your experience here.
I think this is a powerful exercise, and a lot of people just do half of it, where you've asked them, what do you want to learn? I also hear you saying that you're coming back and closing loop from time to time, or perhaps at the end of the workshop, and saying, hey, you know what, this is something that you had put down. This is what we did. This is here we are. How are you feeling about it? So that's kind of closing.
Exactly. And something simple that you can do if you find like with time that you don't actually get to one particular thing
Right.
is to offer them something, so for example, if they want to learn, I don't know, if they're interested in mindfulness, let's say, but we don't get to an exercise in mindfulness, then because of time, I can say to them, for those of you that wanted that, I will send you a recording, an audio recording, so that you can go and do this. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Right.
So it's like, I'm not forgetting that you had that need. I'm still going to honor it, but we'll be a bit creative about how we do that because of the time boundaries. So I think people really appreciate that, because it's not like you're just doing your job. You're actually caring and you're wanting to give them what they are looking to learn. Like you're wanting to give them the opportunity to do that. So I think that's quite useful. Make it personal.
Make it personal.
Yeah.
All right. What is it a book you could recommend to fellow facilitators to read that would all listen to? Even a podcast that you could recommend that could really help someone up their facilitation game?
So the thing that's taught me the most about facilitation has been my study of TA, of transactional analysis. So I would recommend actually going and learning a little bit more about that, because what it does is it teaches you about yourself. It teaches you about the way that you are with other people.
Right.
And there's different avenues of TA that you can go down, but one of them is education. And it is specifically about how do you facilitate learning experiences for other people through a TA lens.
For sure.
So I would really recommend, there's a great podcast called 3 People in Your Head.
Okay.
And
I'm writing that down.
they talk about
3 people in your head, right?
3 people. I think it's either 3 people in your head or 3 voices in your head. One of the two. And they talk to different TA practitioners all around the world, but they ask about, how do you facilitate learning and all of that. So you can actually learn quite a bit about TA, but about how you are as a facilitator in the process. So that's quite a nice podcast. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, my greatest learning has been from the learning groups that I'm a part of. So I'm studying TA actively. I'm working towards becoming a certified transactional analyst. And that has taught me more about how I am as a coach and facilitator than anything else that I've done. So go and have a rich group learning experience where you get to practice, doing this stuff. Like we all take turns teaching a segment in our monthly learning group. And I mean, I just did one the last month where I was co-facilitating with someone. And it was my first time co-facilitating in this context, because usually I'm a lone wolf. And there was so much learning that came out of that. And the feedback that I got from Karen, who's my trainer, was invaluable, and from the other participants. And it's a safe space to go and explore that. So I would definitely recommend finding some kind of group like that where you can actually put it into practice and get feedback.
TA means equals transactional analysis. TA also equals no shortcuts. It's a long process. It takes time, and I think anything that's worth it will always take time. And I'm going to check this out. 3 people in your head. I'm going to check this out. I think it's something that could help me too in my podcast. In closing, Kirsty, is there any last message that you'd like to share with fellow facilitators, coaches out there?
There were like 3 things running through my head there at once. I was trying to let my intuition guide me as to which one to say. So I'd probably just say all 3, which is trust your gut. Trust your gut. If you have a feeling that something is off in the room, it probably is. So check it out. Trust that message has come through to you for a reason, or that feeling has come through to you for a reason. So my first thing is trust your intuition. My second thing is be yourself. Don't try and facilitate in a way that you think you should be doing it. Do it in a way that feels right for you, because you'll be so much more powerful that way. And now I've forgotten the third thing. So we'll leave it at those 2. Trust your intuition and be yourself.
I'll extrapolate a third thing from what you said. So trust your gut and be yourself. And what it's also saying to me is make your own plans, make your own mistakes, make your own agendas, make your own mistakes, and find out. So it's very doing it and not just keep it in your head and saying, I wonder what would happen. Going out there, failing early, learning from that, moving on. Easier said than done, but also making your own mistakes and of course learning from them.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that, because it's prompted me that the third thing was the word curiosity that was going through my head. Be curious, try it out, see what happens. Yeah. Be
curious. Yes. And on that note, we'll end over here. If you want to contact Kirsty once again, she's running an intervention called Brave. It's a masterclass that she's running, and you can contact her at Kirsty Melmed Coach, Kirsty MELMEDCOACH @gmail.com. Kirsty, thank you very much for making the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.